So you finished a draft of your novel. Excellent. But a common question for many writers is, how many drafts do you actually need to write? In this episode of the Other Epic Story vlog, we are gonna talk about drafts. How many do you actually need in order to have a polished manuscript? Hello everybody, I'm Elliot and welcome to another episode of the Other Epic Story vlog. This is the vlog where I offer some helpful writing and editing tips, and then I try to apply it to my own writing. In today's episode, we're gonna highlight a few things. We're gonna talk about how many drafts you need to write, what to look for when you're editing your draft, and then I'm going to continue reading my first chapter. In the previous episode, I read the first page of what is essentially my fourth draft of my epic fantasy trilogy. Let's get started. So how many drafts do you actually need to write? Well, in an interview with Ernest Hemingway, he said, "It depends. I rewrote the ending of Farewell to Arms, the last page of it, 39 times before I was satisfied." Why did he do that? He wanted to get the words just right. So there isn't really an exact number of drafts that you need to write. You can't just rush through it. Oh yeah, I did it, 4 drafts, I'm done, it's ready, let's send it. You can't do that. You can't rush it, but you will have a good idea when it's ready to be shown to friends and family, and when it's ready to be sent off to publishers. So I got here the third draft of my novel. Only 2 people in the world have read this manuscript, and now I'm sharing it with all of you. How special do you feel? I shared it with my wife. She read this back before she was my wife. It's probably one of the reasons she married me. I also shared it with my friend Eric. I don't know if he remembers this, but he read it as well. So I didn't do this before. This is what I learned now, is that I kind of need at least 4 editing phases. Here's how I do it. The first edit, here's where things can completely change. It's a structural edit. So I look for things like plot holes, character arcs, unnecessary characters, unnecessary scenes. I look for scenes to cut. I look for characters to cut. I maybe add a scene to fill in a plot hole. I do all these things and I clean it up a little, and boom, second draft. After you finish the first draft, you feel really good about yourself. This edit is where you feel really bad about yourself. That's okay, because feeling bad for yourself is pretty much what writing is all about. The second edit, I let the second draft sit for a bit just to clear my brain out, maybe a week or so, and then I return to it. You could do this immediately after. I feel like you should take at least a little bit of a break, maybe a few days to a week between the first edit and the second edit, but you could continue and do it immediately after, because you're looking for different things in this edit. You're looking for grammatical error, punctuation, and sort of just bad habits in writing. I'm talking about excessive use of adverbs, I'm talking about passive voice, I'm talking about those little things that end up affecting the quality of your writing. The reason you do this edit after you do the structural edit is because you don't want to polish a paragraph that you end up cutting completely. So that's the second edit. So after the second edit, you should feel a little bit more confident about your manuscript. It should be polished enough for someone else to read it without you feeling embarrassed. So you could send it to a friend and family. I don't necessarily recommend that because friends and family, they don't really give the best feedback. Or if you have a writing group, I would absolutely send it to a few members, maybe just one, to start, see if they could give you any good feedback. You're not always guaranteed good feedback, but it is good to send it out just to get it out in the world a little bit and hear what people think. You'll always be a little surprised at what actually registers with people. It's actually quite a refreshing experience. So a few months later, or however long it takes your friends and family to read your manuscript, it takes a while, believe me. They'll give it back to you. There might be some notes jotted down in the margin, and then you're gonna look through it. You're gonna read all those notes and you're gonna decide which one of those feedback you actually want to take. You need to decide. Don't make every change that other people suggest. You need to sort of understand all the themes and element of your story in order to make that decision yourself. So don't just cut stuff or add stuff just because other people say so. So this is the third draft. This is where you make cuts and edits with a bit of external influence. It's quite fun and it is a little agonizing as well. So I put this down as the fourth plus edit. This means it could be your last edit or it could be the start of a whole new cycle of edits. So this is what I want you to do now. I want you to go back and do exactly what you did during the first edit. I want you to look at the structure of the story. I want you to look for plot holes. I want you to look for unnecessary characters, unnecessary scenes, unnecessary sentences, down to unnecessary words. I want you to do that all over again. And then I want you to go through it again and polish it up, all the grammatical errors, all the typos and adverbs and passive voice and all that stuff. And then send it off to a friend and family again. And it will probably be quite a different manuscript that they read. And hopefully they'll be able to see that improvement. So that is like 7 phases of editing added upon it. That is sort of the method I want to apply to my piece of work now. I want to look for the structure, I want to give it a good pass there, and then I want to look for grammatical errors and all that stuff, make it readable so when I share it to someone, I wouldn't be completely embarrassed of my own work. There's always going to be typos, by the way. I wouldn't get too caught up in that. And then lastly, I'll take the feedback that other people give me and sort of consider it. That sums up how many edits you should do. All right, now let's get to the fun part. I think this is the fun part. I can't really tell. In the beginning of the chapter, I sort of set the scene. I talk a bit about the setting and sort of the civilization that's living there now. And now we jump right into the plot. In late autumn, when the weather grew cold and the harvest approached its end, a creature that lives near the district core would sneak into town. At night, it would scavenge for food upon the streets, taking whatever it could put its paws, hands, or claws on, from bulks of grain to livestock locked in barns. Nothing can be protected from the thieving phantom. Armed with knives, axes, and other tools substituting as weapons, defenders of Jin search for the creature. They follow tracks that disappeared without a trace. They set alarms which it clearly avoided. They tried to trap and poison it, but those attempts were foiled as well. Even with all their efforts, large quantities of food would end up being stolen by the beast that was able to sneak through their doors in the middle of the night. It seemed like an injustice that the creature could continuously steal from the town, but it was also true that the creature was considerate enough to limit its visits. There was only one distinct week in November where the creature would appear. The Jin folk developed a theory. Whatever it was storing its food for the winter months. Rather it hibernated, or if the cold weather caused a shortage in its food source. Nobody could be certain. The creature's head was worth more than gold to Jin folks. Dozens of deaths a year were caused by starvation during the winter days. Those that were fortunate not to be ransacked were wise and wary. They kept food hidden away from dying neighbors and desperate burglars, because hunger turns people into monsters. Well, that's everything for today. Tune in next episode as I talk about what makes a good first chapter. And I'll continue reading from my first chapter and see where I can improve. How many drafts of a novel do you usually write? I love to hear about your process. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you again soon. Keep writing, keep believing, keep doing whatever you're doing.